Xyler had studied hundreds of primitive worlds. As a junior scout of the Valari Empire, he was trained to observe, record, and report. His latest assignment was a blue planet the natives called Earth. To his surprise, it wasn't a savage wasteland like the others he had visited. It was noisy, alive, and filled with strange inventions and burning lights. He hovered above Earth's surface in a camouflaged pod, carefully watching humans. He whispered to himself, "They look weak, slow, and chaotic." From space, they seemed unorganized and self-destructive. Yet something about Earth made the High Council nervous. Why would the Council care about a world filled with music, food stalls, and flying birds? Xyler activated his stealth gear and prepared to land. He chose a location far from the cities, a vast base hidden in mountains. According to his scans, this was a military installation perfect for study. He stepped out into the cold night, wearing a mimic suit to blend in with the rocks. As he crept closer, he saw tall fences, flashing red lights, and guards with rifles. Primitive tools, he thought, nothing to worry about. He crawled silently under the fence, past the cameras, and into the heart of the base. Inside, he found something unexpected. It wasn't the buildings or the soldiers that made him stop. It was what they were guarding, behind a thick blast door. Through layers of biometric scans lay something called a nuclear missile. He had read the word in Earth databases but had never seen one in real life. His eyes widened as he saw it, tall, cold, silent, and deadly. A single launch, he realized, could turn a city into ash. And there were hundreds of these, scattered across the planet. Worse, humans had used them before, during something called World War II, but after that, they had stopped. Why? Why would a species create such deadly tools, and then refuse to use them? He climbed higher in the base, hiding in air vents, until he reached the control room. There, humans sat calmly drinking coffee, typing reports, laughing at jokes, and all around them were screens showing weapons that could destroy continents. Xyler's hands trembled. He whispered into his translator log, "This species builds gods and uses them like decorations." Suddenly, the base went into alert mode. A siren blared, red lights flashed, and soldiers ran toward the outer wall. Xyler panicked. Had they detected him? He crawled back toward the exit, but it was too late. A group of guards cornered him, weapons raised, shouting orders. He tried to run, but a stun round hit his chest, and everything went black. He woke up hours later in a clean white room. His hands were cuffed, and a clear wall separated him from a group of scientists. To his shock, they were not afraid of him. They were fascinated. One of them stepped forward, a woman in a lab coat, and spoke gently. "Are you from another planet?" Xyler blinked, unsure how to answer. He nodded slowly. She smiled. "Don't worry, we won't harm you." That made Xyler more afraid, not less. How could they be so calm after capturing a hostile alien? He looked at the screen behind her. It showed Earth's orbit, filled with satellites, weapons, and early warning systems. Earth wasn't weak. Earth wasn't primitive. Earth was prepared. They simply chose peace. Not because they were innocent, but because they were too powerful. War for them would be too easy, he whispered, mostly to himself. This planet could end us all. The scientist leaned closer. "What did you say?" Xyler said nothing, but deep in his mind, one message kept repeating. "Send a warning to the Valari. Council, do not provoke the humans. They are not what they seem." Xyler sat alone in a silent glass cell. He had been captured by humans, and yet he wasn't tortured or hurt. Instead, they gave him food, water, and a strange warm blanket. 3 guards stood outside the door, but none looked afraid. They watched him like scientists observe a bird. In a cage, not angry, not violent, just curious, Xyler had prepared for pain, for interrogation, for chemical scans, but nothing happened. The humans waited. A soft voice echoed through a speaker above him. "Are you in pain?" Xyler didn't answer. The voice continued. "We're not here to harm you." A panel on the wall opened, and a tray slid in, holding Earth food fruits, bread, and something hot in a cup. He sniffed it, scanned it with his neural chip, and slowly tasted the liquid. It was sweet, warm, and oddly calming. He took another sip, confused by their kindness. Why would a species with weapons that could end worlds show mercy to a stranger? An hour later, the door opened. A woman entered the room, tall, confident, wearing a calm smile and a badge that read, Dr. Alina Ward. She sat across from him, no weapons, just a tablet in her hand. My name is Alina, she said. I study life forms, including intelligent ones. Xyler stayed quiet. She continued, we know you're not from this world. We detected your ship's tech. It's far beyond ours. Still, Xyler said nothing. We don't want to harm you. We just want to understand, she added softly. Xyler finally spoke, his voice shaky. Why am I alive? Alina tilted her head. Because killing is not our first choice. That answer hit him like a meteor. In the Valari Empire, mercy was weakness, invasion was survival. Yet these humans chose not to destroy, even when they had the power. He looked into Alina's eyes and asked, why do you keep weapons that could destroy planets, but choose peace? She paused for a moment, then said, because real power doesn't need to prove itself. Xyler leaned back, stunned. He had trained all his life to believe that peace came only after victory, but humans believed peace came from holding back. Suddenly, the ground shook slightly, just a faint vibration. Alina glanced at her tablet, then back at him. Don't worry. It's just a test one of our satellite defense systems. Xyler's eyes widened. You test your weapons while drinking tea. Alina smiled. Of course, we like to be prepared. Later that night, Xyler was moved to a private room. It was not a prison, but it was locked. He was given books, documentaries, and access to a language program. The humans wanted him to learn, so he did. He watched their history, great wars, space races, atomic fears, and finally, peace talks. They had fought among themselves, bled, and suffered. And then, they had changed. Not because they were forced to, but because they decided to. That was what scared him the most. They chose peace, even after building the tools of extinction. 3 days passed. Then came the question he feared. Alina sat across from him again and asked, why are you here? Xyler froze. He could lie, say he was just exploring. Or he could tell the truth, that he was a scout, gathering data for possible invasion. He took a deep breath. I came to study, he said slowly, to measure your strength. And what did you find? She asked. Xyler looked down. You're more dangerous than any world we've seen. But you don't act like it. That night, he sent a message to the Valari High Council through a hidden neural pulse. A short warning. Do not provoke Earth danger unmatched. He didn't know if it would reach them in time, but he had to try. Because something had changed in him. He no longer saw humans as weak. He saw them as something far more powerful, calm destroyers who could win any war. But chose not to fight, as Xyler lay in his bed, staring at the Earth stars beyond the glass window. He whispered, they are not just another species. They are a warning. Xyler stood in the elevator as it sank deep beneath the Earth's surface. Beside him stood Dr. Alina Ward. Calm as always, her ID badge glowing faintly. No guards, no chains, just silence. Xyler didn't understand why they were taking him somewhere underground. But Alina had said only one thing before they entered the lift. It's time you saw why no one dares attack Earth. The doors slid open, revealing a massive chamber filled with blue lights. The air was cold, humming with quiet energy. In the center of the room stood something tall and sharp, surrounded by shields and sealed consoles. It looked like a tower, but it had no windows or doors. Only glowing panels and strange vents that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. This, Alina said, walking ahead, is called Titan. Xyler followed her slowly, his eyes wide. It's not a missile, she added. It's a satellite array. Xyler blinked, confused. You keep a satellite this deep underground? She smiled. No, this is just its command core. Titan is already in orbit. Xyler scanned the data from the room with his internal chip. What he saw made him freeze. Titan wasn't just a weapon. It was a system, a global strike system, able to target any object in space or on a planet within seconds. No sound, no warning, no escape. It could vaporize an army without leaving a trace. And it was powered by something even Valari scientists had not mastered: compressed quantum fusion. You created a weapon that doesn't explode, Xyler whispered. It erases. Elena didn't deny it. Yes, she said. It ends things completely. But why build this? He asked. You said humans want peace. Elena turned to face him, her voice low and steady. Because peace has a price, and sometimes peace needs a guardian. Xyler didn't speak. He simply stared at the glowing control room. Titan didn't have buttons or keys. It worked only with BioLink security, and even then, only under strict orders from a global council in Valari culture. A weapon like this would be used the moment it was finished. But here, it had been hidden, maintained, and never fired. It was the sword Earth kept sheathed, and it was terrifying. Do other species know about this? He asked. Elena nodded slowly. A few, but they don't speak of it. And the Valari? She turned to him with a calm look. That depends on what you told them. Xyler looked away, ashamed. I warned them, he said. But they don't always listen. Elena's eyes narrowed just slightly. You believe they'll come? I think they're already watching, he replied. And they'll send something to test your strength. Elena looked at the glowing tower of silence in front of her. If they do, Titan will speak, she said softly. Xyler shivered. Not because of her words, but because of how calmly she said them. There was no hate in her voice, no anger, no pride, just certainty. Humans didn't build Titan to scare or to brag. They built it to make sure war never happened again. On the wall behind them, a digital screen showed Earth's orbit. Tiny dots circled the planet satellites, stations, probes, and Titan's core unit. Xyler focused on one dot that pulsed red. What's that? He asked. Elena checked the screen, her voice growing tense. That is a surveillance alert. Suddenly, the chamber lights dimmed. A soft alarm buzzed. Elena tapped her tablet and called security. We've detected something cloaked near the moon, she said, and it's not ours. Xyler's heart sank. They're here, he whispered. Elena looked at him. You need to tell us everything, she said, right now, but Xyler didn't answer. He was staring at the red dot, slowly moving across the moon's surface. He knew what it was. Not a fleet, not an army. A Valari test ship, small, fast, and armed with experimental weapons. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming to measure, to challenge. They're going to attack, he said, his voice hollow. Elena didn't flinch. We'll be ready, she replied. Xyler looked at her. This human with quiet eyes and unshaken hands. And he finally understood. Earth didn't want war, but if war came knocking, Earth would answer with silence and light. Asterisk high above the desert world of Valaria Prime. The High Council sat in a dark chamber, lit only by floating blue crystals. The faces of the councilors were serious, watching a hologram flicker in front of them. It showed Earth's surface, human cities glowing like stars. And in the corner, Project Titan, outlined in red. The voice of Xyler echoed through the chamber. They avoid war because it would be too easy to win. Some counselors stared in silence. Others whispered in fear. Counselor Tharek, the oldest among them, stood and slammed his staff to the ground. This must be a trick, he growled. A scare tactic from a weak species. Then explain this, hissed Counselor Velry, pointing at a still image of Titan's beam slicing through space debris with surgical precision. She looked around the room, her silver eyes cold. They have weapons that don't just destroy, she said. They erase. There was a pause. Counselor Luth, a younger voice on the council, spoke quietly. If they had this power for so long, Why haven't they conquered others? Silence fell again, because there was no answer. No empire with such strength had ever waited this long without striking, and yet, Earth had done nothing. It hadn't expanded, enslaved, or threatened. It had simply waited. Perhaps, Luth continued, they are not cowards. But guardians, Thorek scoffed. You mean to praise them? No, Luth said. I mean to fear them. The council chamber trembled slightly as a red warning appeared above them. A new message had arrived, Xyler's second transmission. Marked emergency, it read. A test ship has been launched. Earth has detected it. Advise full retreat. The room exploded into shouts and chaos. They know. We were too late. They'll strike first. Velry raised her hand, silencing them all. It's done, she said. The ship has already passed the moon, Luth whispered. Then we have hours left, maybe less. Thorek gritted his teeth. If they destroy our test ship without warning, it is an act of war, Velry turned to him slowly. And if they warned us, and we ignored them? She asked, would it not still be our fault? In a private chamber beneath the council, Luth accessed the hidden military network. He watched in real time as the Velari test ship approached Earth's orbit. The human defense grid blinked too. Life fast, clean, and without hesitation. No words, no threats, just action. A single beam from orbit lit up the ship's hull. The signal vanished. The test ship was gone. No explosion, no smoke, just silence. As if it had never existed, Luth stared at the screen, breathless. He tapped a message to the council. It has begun. Moments later, the High Council received a private message from Earth. Encrypted, direct, and polite, it said, we detected an unregistered vessel in our orbit. The threat was neutralized. No casualties reported on Earth. Please confirm if this vessel was of Velari origin. The tone was calm, professional, and chilling. They weren't asking for forgiveness. They were asking for confirmation, as if daring the Velari to admit they had sent it. The council argued for hours. Should they lie and claim the ship was stolen? Should they admit it and risk open war? Or should they say nothing and hope the humans forget? In the end, Velry stood once more. We do not face a simple species, she said. We face something we do not understand, something that has evolved beyond conquest. She looked around the room, eyes hard. If we test them again, we may not get another warning. They agreed to send a final message to Earth. One sentence only. We apologize for the error and respect your space. It was not an admission, but it was surrender in disguise. Xyler, still in the human base, received a copy of the message hours later. He read it twice, then sighed in relief. Earth would be safe for now, but he knew the galaxy was watching, and they would not all respond like the Velari. He stood beside Alina that evening, looking at Earth's sky from a rooftop. Did you destroy the ship because you were angry? He asked. Alina shook her head. We destroyed it, she said, because we don't get second chances. And peace, she added, is something we never take for granted. Xyler looked up at the stars, and for the first time in his life, he was afraid, not of war, but of how close the universe had come to losing its last hope for peace. The silence in Earth's orbit didn't last long. Far beyond the moon, hidden in a dust field, a second Velari ship watched. This one was not a test, it was a judgment, larger. Armed with particle spears and cloaking armor, it had orders from a secret faction within the Velari military. If Earth proves dangerous, erase it before the Council can stop us. Commander Zur stood tall in the bridge of the warship Vraction. He had no interest in peace. We were feared across 5 galaxies before the humans lit fire in the dark. He growled. His crew nodded, sharp-eyed and silent. Now we strike, back on Earth. In the underground control room, Xyler paced the floor. He had not slept since the first ship vanished. Something in his gut screamed danger. They won't stop with one test, he told Alina. Not all of them think like the Council. Alina stared at the latest radar logs, her jaw tense. I agree, she said. We've detected unusual movement behind lunar shadows. Just then, a sharp beep echoed through the room. The satellite network had picked up a ghost signature feint. Irregular, but moving fast. Unknown vessel detected, the system announced. Trajectory, direct to Earth orbit. Everyone froze. Xyler stepped back. It's them. Alina didn't speak. She simply tapped her tablet. Alert Titan, in orbit. Project Titan activated. Its sensors aligned. Silent beams scanning the darkness. But the Volari ship was ready. The Vraxian fired first, not at the surface, but at the satellites. 3 human defense drones blinked off instantly, on Earth. Alarms screamed, red lights flashed, and the sky above the Pacific glowed briefly. Xyler watched in horror. They're not testing this time, he said. They're starting a war. General Keane entered the room, his uniform sharp and his eyes colder than ice. No more games, he said. Authorization Titan 01. Alina paused. Are you sure? Yes, Keane said. They fired first. With that command, Earth's deadliest weapon responded. Titan did not roar. It did not shine. It simply locked on, from orbit. A pulse invisible to the eye passed through the cloaking field of the Vraxian. The Volari ship shuddered. Its engines glitching. Systems crashing. Evasive maneuvers. Ze screamed, but it was too late. In less than 6 seconds, Titan released a compression beam. Not fire, not heat, but pure energy, folded into a silent wave. It sliced through the warship's hull like wind through smoke. No explosion followed. The ship vanished, cut clean from reality. Gone, on Earth. Silence returned to the control room. Only the low hum of machines remained. Xyler stared at the blank screen where the Volari ship had once appeared. They didn't even get to fire a second shot, he whispered. General Keane exhaled slowly. We don't warn twice, he said. The message was clear, not just to Volari, but to every eye watching across the stars. Earth would not start wars, but if provoked, it would end them. News of the destroyed warship spread like a virus through interstellar channels. Empires, pirates, traitors, and spies picked up the signal logs. No one could believe what had happened. One ship had challenged Earth, and Earth had replied with erasure at the Volari High Council. Panic broke through the marble walls. Counselor Thurek slammed his fist on the table. You fools, he shouted. You sent that second ship without our approval, no one claimed. Responsibility, no one wanted to. Counselor Velry stood in the middle of the chaos, her voice low but firm. This is no longer about fear, she said. This is about respect. If we ever hope to speak to Earth as equals, we must stop seeing them as prey. On Earth, Xyler stood once again beside Alina on the base rooftop. Above them, stars blinked quietly. We killed them, he said, more to himself than her. Alina's voice was steady. We defended. She replied, and that's the only reason you're still here. Xyler nodded slowly. I believe you, he said, and I hope the rest of the galaxy learns before it's too late. Alina looked at the stars and whispered, so do we. Asterisk news traveled faster than light in the galactic underworld. In hidden markets, in royal palaces, and among outlaw fleets, one name was spoken in awe and fear. Earth. The story spread like wildfire. An alien warship had approached Earth's orbit, armed and cloaked. It had fired first, and in return, Earth erased it from the stars without a word. Some called it a lie. Others said it was a warning. But every race, from the insectoid Travak to the stone-bodied Hulrith, now viewed Earth not as prey but as a mystery, a quiet planet on the edge of the Milky Way that refused to conquer, and yet held the power to end wars with a single beam of light. The Galactic Assembly met in an emergency session. Thousands of species, thousands of voices, and one common question: should Earth be isolated or invited? Ambassador Relka of the Solari Alliance stood tall in the council dome. She raised a slender hand and spoke in a tone that echoed through the chamber. They possess weapons that make our fleets look like toys, she said, and yet they Have not expanded, not enslaved, not invaded. She paused, then added, they hold a sword. And they refuse to swing it. The Korgothi warlords, whose empire thrived on conquest, scoffed at the idea. They are dangerous because they are silent, one growled. They will strike when no one expects it. The high priest of the Leori countered, no, he said softly. They have already been struck. And they spared the galaxy by not retaliating further. Their restraint is not fear, he added. It is strength. Meanwhile on Earth, Alina stood beside Xyler as he prepared to return home. He had been granted safe passage, a gesture. Not only to him, but to the entire Velari Empire. You think they'll come again? She asked. Xyler looked up at the stars. Not the same way, he said. But someone will. Eventually, he turned to her, eyes sharp but calm. I must speak before the Galactic Assembly, he said. They need to hear the truth. Alina nodded. And what truth will you tell them? That peace, he said, is not weakness. That Earth does not beg for peace. It guards it. A week later, in the heart of the Galactic Assembly, Xyler stood before thousands. He wore no armor, no medals, only a simple suit given to him by humans. He raised his hand and began. I was sent to Earth to judge their strength, he said. I saw cities, culture, kindness. But beneath that, I saw something terrifying. I saw a weapon, he continued, so advanced, so perfect. It did not make noise. It did not cause fire. It simply ended things. A quiet murmur rippled through the crowd. But what shook me most, he added, was that they chose not to use it. They do not rule the stars, though they could. They do not threaten others, though they are feared. He looked around the chamber. And yet, when they were attacked, they defended with precision, not cruelty. That is not power born of hate, he finished. That is power born of purpose. When he stepped down, there was silence. For the first time in decades, no empire spoke of war. Instead, they whispered about peace, not because they believed in it, but because Earth had shown them what would happen if they didn't. Back on Earth, Alina received a message on her secure tablet. A vote had passed. Earth was to be granted observer status in the Galactic Assembly. Not a full member, not yet, but a step forward, a sign that the galaxy understood. Xyler sent her one final message from the Velari homeworld. They listened. It read, not because I begged, but because they saw what silence from Earth truly means. Alina smiled as she closed the message. Above her, Titan floated quietly in orbit. No sounds, no threats. Just silent power watching over a fragile peace. Earth had been judged, and now the galaxy had learned, you don't fear those who speak loudly, you fear the ones who never have to. Years had passed since Earth destroyed the Velari strike ship, but the stars had not forgotten. Across the galaxy, maps were redrawn. Military budgets shrank, and empires reconsidered their hunger for expansion, not because Earth ruled them, but because Earth never tried to. At the center of the Galactic Assembly, a statue now stood in silence. It was not of a warrior, not of a general. It was a sculpture of Earth itself, blue, green, and small, floating in the middle of a dark hall. Beneath it were just 4 words, etched in every known language. They chose not to strike. Xyler, now an elder ambassador, stood before a new generation of galactic leaders. His body had changed with age, but his voice still carried the fire of memory. He addressed them, not with fear, but with warning. You look at Earth and see a small planet, he said, but what lives there is not small. He told them of the first contact, the base beneath the mountains, the weapon that did not roar but simply erased. He described the humans not as conquerors, but as protectors who had built walls of light instead of chains. He paused, then said, they will never start a war, but if pushed, they will finish one before it begins. In the shadows of that speech, somewhere across the void, another empire stirred. The Syndrax Dominion, unknown to most, had grown quietly in the far edge of the galaxy. Their leaders didn't believe in Earth's legend. They pretend to be strong by saying nothing. Their high commanders sneered. They hide behind silence and myth. So they built a fleet, not to invade, but to test the myth. They didn't send it to Earth. They sent it to Mars, Earth's quiet neighbor. A warning strike, they thought, a harmless message. But Earth was always listening. Within minutes, Titan reoriented from its sleep cycle. A new defense system codenamed Echo woke from its orbit beyond Jupiter. Before the Syndrax ships could reach Mars, their signals were jammed, their engines frozen. They floated like toys in a pool, powerless and drifting. A single message blinked across every Syndrax screen. Do not touch what is under our sky. The fleet turned around, humiliated and silent. The Dominion never spoke of Earth again, not because they lost, but because they never even got the chance to fight. Back on Earth, Elena now led the Global Peace Directorate. Her hair had turned silver, her voice softer, but her will stronger than ever. She stood before a global broadcast and spoke to every citizen on the planet. Peace is not something we ask for, she said. It is something we protect. The camera panned upward, showing Earth's orbit. Titan still hovered, joined now by newer systems with names like Shield Point, NovaWeb, and Echo. Not weapons of destruction, but weapons of silence. Each one built to remind the stars. Earth would not strike first, but it would always strike last. In schools across distant planets, children were taught about Earth's first contact. They learned not just about power, but about choice. They read stories not of heroes, but of restraint, of a species that built weapons greater than any known, and refused to use them unless they had no other option. Xyler, now old and quiet, sat by a small fire on Valaria Prime. A young alien child approached him and asked, why didn't Earth take over the galaxy when it had the chance? He smiled gently, looking up at the night sky. Because true strength, he said, is not in the hand that can destroy. It's in the heart that chooses not to. He pointed to a star small, distant, blue. Remember that world, he said. The quiet one, the one that warned the galaxy once, and never needed to do it again. And above them all, far beyond the noise of empires and ships, Earth floated silently, not the loudest voice, but the one everyone listened to.